Hey there, and welcome to Creative You Art Lesson Crates. My name is Karen, and I'm your instructor for the day. I want to introduce to you today's artist, who is Georgia O'Keeffe. She was born in 1887 and died in 1986. She lived a very long, full life. She had huge contributions in the American modernism age with her skulls, which were very cool. They're animal skulls with a desert background. She did a lot of cityscapes, but what she was most known for were her flowers. Now, her flowers were somewhat controversial because it was sort of viewed as feminism art. So a lot of people stuck up their noses at her style and technique. But basically, flowers are very feminine. What she would do is she would zoom in really far into one certain part of a flower. It could be part of a petal or the stamen, the stigma, the stem, it didn't matter. She would zoom in really closely and then she would paint that part with a variety of soft hues. The problem is, some people who viewed her art thought that it was more of a female form or a specific part of a female anatomy, and that was not pleasing to many viewers. But that's the glory of art. It can bring in anger and disgust and different views from people, but it can also bring in love and appreciation from others. Art is controversial, and some artists feel that the more controversial, the more famous they can be. I personally don't feel that's the case for me, but artists like Duchamp, who took a urinal, a toilet, and turned it upside down and called it art. Well, I don't find that as art, but it was very controversial, made him very famous, and his work is hung in galleries. So Georgia O'Keeffe, though she is not in any way, shape, or form in the same realm as Duchamp, with her controversy, there was controversy and still is as to what exactly she was trying to portray in her flowers. I like to think that they were just really up close, beautiful versions of what she saw. So that's what we're going to work on today. Now you're going to notice on your form, first of all, this here is our inspiration piece. That's White Flower on Red Earth. Very simple name, easy to remember. Over here, this is a color wheel. I'm going to go ahead and center that for you because we're going to work on this for a few minutes. A color wheel is quite literally a wheel, and you have red, yellow, and blue. Red, yellow, and blue are primary colors. No matter what you add together, you're never going to come up with those colors. Now, of course, you can come up with versions of them by adding orange or green to that color, but you're not going to get a true yellow, a true red, or a true blue. So those are primary colors. Now, if you took those two primary colors and combine them, you get a secondary color. So red and yellow make orange. Orange is the secondary color. Yellow and blue, or I'm sorry, yellow and blue, yeah, make green. And then blue and red make purple. Those are secondary colors. So it takes two primaries to make one secondary. It's important to know these because these colors go well together. But these colors do not when it comes to blending. Now, that being said, if you paint your wall purple and you want a couch to really stand out, I might advise a yellow couch because purple and yellow are across from each other on a color wheel. That means they complement each other. They're complementary colors. Same thing with orange and blue and red and green. So If you have a red kitchen and a green table, it'll be very appealing to the eye. But if we take red and green and blend them, that's not very appealing to the eye. It's actually kind of a brown. Not very pretty. The same thing happens with the blue and the orange. And also the yellow and the purple. So side by side, they look fabulous together. On top of each other, not good. Okay, so back to our picture. We're going to be working with chalk pastels as watercolors. Now, if you are in our student lesson, you already received pan watercolors. They're basically the same basic concept as these, but they're already in containers. So you can just add water to the pad and have the color right there. If you're in my adult series, you got a bunch of chalk pastels. Chalk pastels are just like sidewalk chalk, just richer and more pigment, smoother. They blend very, very well. So you can put orange next to another color and rub your finger on it, or use a torch or a Q-tip or a napkin and have a beautiful blend. You can also add a little bit of water and you have made watercolors. So that's what we're going to work on today. I want you to grab one of the thick pieces of paper. The thicker the better when it comes to working with watercolors, because if you don't, you're going to make a hole in your paper, because paper has only so much of a threshold for wetness. Eventually a puddle is going to make a hole. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. You're going to need to get a pencil out. It came with a pencil, but this is just a regular art pencil. Any kind of pencil works. We're going to use the whole piece of paper. So we're going to draw big. Usually I stress drawing big, but this time it's really important to draw big. Let's go ahead and eyeball the center of your paper. What eyeballing means is you're going to look at the picture and kind of estimate about where you think the center is going to be. You can measure it, of course, but eyeballing it works just fine. It may not be exactly center, but that's okay. So right where we think that center goes, let's go ahead and put a little circle about the size of a fingerprint. And then we're going to add our petals. But we want to draw super lightly because we're going to add on top of it and want to be able to erase. So let's go ahead and start right at your circle. Super softly draw a line that comes almost to the edge of the page and start to curve it so it goes off. Then I'm going to take it just a little bit further out. I'm going to go the other side. Curve it and down. So there's a petal. We're going to do another one. We're going to skip a little bit, just a little bit. We're going to come out. This one's going to be slightly irregular, so he's going to bump in and out and come back. We have another one here. Curve and stop. And this one is split. It's got a seam, so we're going to do it again. Now that doesn't quite make sense. I didn't bring it all the way in because I want this petal to rest on top, just like this petal did. So I'm going to go out and off the page. This petal needs to be closed off Go ahead and connect this one. Now right here, I want to make it look like a little bit of background is showing through. So a little bit of a hole right there. We're going to do another little hole right here because we're going to add another petal to the background. And let's add one more right there. You can do petals however you want to. Remember, these are inspired by this painting, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be just like that painting. Being inspired means it's your version of it. If I were inspired by a picture of Mickey Mouse, I might do a dog wearing red pants just like Mickey Mouse. Something along those lines. A little bit the same, but a little bit different. All right, so let's go ahead and add the main parts of the flower. They are a smile and a smile. I kept it nice and skinny. Let's add 3 more here. 1, 2, 3. You can add them wherever you want. 1. Honestly, I'm just looking at the inspiration piece. I do notice that on the inspiration piece, there's a line that comes out there because there's a little bit of a fold. Let's add 1 more up here. And finally, we need our leaves. So I'm going to do a main line, slightly curved, and we're going to go you, 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 you. Let's do another one out here. Come out, a you, out. Just have them go off the page. And maybe one here. And the reason I'm doing 3 is everything's better in odd numbers when it comes to art. Okay. So there's our beautiful picture. I think it's going to look nice. Go ahead and pause the video once you have once you get to a point to where you need to take a few minutes to finish drawing, and then we will get to the painting part. Okay, so now we're going to start with our background, and we're going to use our chalk pastel. We're going to softly put in some color. You don't have to fill in the whole thing because when you paint it with the water, it's going to blend in there pretty nicely. Try really hard not to get it into your flower because your flower is white. We don't want any pink in our flower if we can avoid it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use some water on a paintbrush. Be gentle with your paintbrush. Don't go against the grain. Paint softly, gently. Okay, it's going to take some water. Put it directly onto the red and start dragging it into the chalk. If you use the wrong kind of paper, it's going to make a hole because this is where you're going to start playing with the pigment and digging it into the paper and trying to make it stick. Because what the water's doing, it's taking all of the dust from the chalk pastel and pushing it into your paper. I'm going to go ahead and turn my paper so I can get to this. Never drag your hand through chalk pastel or it's going to drag the chalk around. Now I just don't want to have my hand blocking the way. That's why I keep flipping it around. Normally I would be like all over here, but I want you to be able to see. Okay. And last one. Take your time when you do art. Don't rush it. It's not a race. There. Now, in the original, there's lots of shadowing around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dark color. You can do black or you can do brown, whichever you prefer. If you feel like black is a little too dark, switch to brown. I'm going to add a little bit of darkness wherever I think there might be a shadow. I didn't do it all the way around because I don't want it to look like it's a cartoon. And then you're going to re-drag it. If there's something you don't like, wait till it dries and then you can fix it. Trying to manipulate wet paint is very difficult. Okay, very nice. So now what I want to do is start on the leaves. So we're going to take green and we're going to take yellow. Put some green in there. Just a little bit. I'm going to take some yellow. And then I'm going to do one last color. It's going to seem strange, but I'm going to take my red. And I want to go back in here and I want to add just a touch of red on the spots that I think it needs shadow. Why would I do that? Well, basically, I'm trying to add shadowing without using just black. So I'm going to add just a touch of black in there. And now, actually, I think it needs a little bit more green in there. Doesn't seem like it's going to be much because it's just zigzag, scratchy lines, but let's see how it works. Come in here, grab those dark shadows, blend them together, blend, blend, blend. Do you see how it's starting to make like a really nice blended leaf? I'm going to turn it around so I can get to these guys. Start with my shadowed corner. And voila. Last one. And drag it out. A little bit more water. Done. Cool, huh? Looks pretty neat. Okay, so now what I want to do is add the darkness for around each of the petals. But like I've been saying before, I don't want it to appear like it's an outlined cartoon. I'm turning it back to the original way that I had drawn it because I have more shadow down here, which means I want more shadow on my flower. I am not putting any pressure on my pastel. And this is in fact a pastel. It is not a charcoal. I want some shadowing over here. I want a little bit of shadowing over here. A little bit of shadowing over here. Definitely shadowing over here. Definitely some down here. Wherever they fold, it's important that you have some. And we'll put a little bit over here. Now I also want to add a little bit of blue, just for a little tonal difference. It's not necessary. I just think a little bit of blue and a white flower looks nice. Barely even touched it. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and start blending it out. You want to get to the bulk of the color down low first and then start pulling it up into the white area. You have to work a little fast. If you're very uncomfortable with it, practice on a scratch sheet of paper. I did give you lots of pieces so you can practice. All right, see how I'm hitting it and then I'm dragging it in. Hit it and then drag it in. I'm going to do this one. Now it's watercolor. Watercolors are very difficult to learn because you're manipulating water with pigment in it. It's not like you can really control it too well. It's not, this picture is not going to look just like hers because her water flowed differently than yours is. Notice how fast I'm having to work to keep it moving. Keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. All right. How's that look? I think it looks pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and add some yellow. Coming out of the center. I'm going to put a little bit of orange in here too. Now what I want to do is drag my hands over gently. Make sure that it's dry when you get to this point. Otherwise you're going to start peeling the paper. Take your paint and go on top. Spread it out. Okay. So now what we need to do is dry our pictures thoroughly. I recommend a blow dryer. You can just fan it in the air for a few minutes as well. But we want to make sure that the center is nice and dry so we can do the next part. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it while I dry it, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so we're mostly dry, and I can go ahead and start on the next part of the flower. I'm going to take a little orange and I'm going to hit all of my little smiles. I'm going to put a little bit in my circle. I'm going to take some yellow and hit all my smiles. And in the circle, I'm going to take brown, do my circle, a little bit in these smiles. And now I'm going to, oh, and a little bit of black inside or outside the circle. Just a little. So now is the part where we're going to want to use a very fine brush, or the tip of the brush, because I don't want it to drag anywhere but in my smiles. If you have too much water, tap at it with a napkin, and that'll soak up any extra. All right, and now we want to work on this little area here. Touch of water, blend them together. Okay, so that is our inspired Georgia O'Keeffe flower. The more you practice with your watercolors, the more familiar they're going to get. Now know that you can use watercolors or the pastels in another way. You can paint directly from them. Take your wet brush, put it on your pastel, and paint. So play around with it. Get familiar with your pastels and see how far you can stretch them. Know that you can also draw with them and blend. You can wet the tip and draw with them that way too. See how much richer and thicker they are? So water is a wonderful way of extending the functions of chalk pastels. So play with it, enjoy it, have some fun with it. And before I forget, always sign your work. And I almost put 15. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope that you enjoy all of the lessons. I really appreciate your love of art, your desire to create. If you would like to show us your picture, I would love to see it. Please feel free to email it to us through our website. Absolutely love to see it. You can send it directly to me at Karen@creative, the letter U, art.com. Or you can text it, 985-381-7012. I really hope that you've enjoyed this lesson, and stay tuned for more. Thanks so much. Have a great night.